Okay, so when we open up SketchUp Make, we get a screen that looks something like this. Towards the bottom it says template. You need to choose a template to work with. Now, for the majority of time, although there's lots to choose from, we're going to actually use this last one. Although it says 3D printing, it also says millimeters, which is what we're working with. So it's going to be a fairly small drawing, and it's going to work in millimeters rather than inches. So make sure that one's selected. Click Start Using SketchUp. Okay, when SketchUp opens, first of all, you'll see this MakerBot replicator thing. We don't need that because we're not actually going to be using a 3D printer. So I'm just going to grab this whole thing, go around it so it goes blue, press my delete button. So I'm back to basically nothing on my screen. Okay, so you've got 3 different colored lines on here, and they basically are your X, Y, and Z axis lines. And that will make a little bit more sense in a minute when I draw something. But basically, there's a few tools you need to know about. If your toolbars don't look the same as mine, it's probably because I've changed some of mine. So basically, under View, you've got Toolbars. And if you click on there, it opens up a window. And there's lots of different ones that you can have switched on. So you can see the ones I've got on. I've got my large tool set. I've got my measurements. I've got something called Sandbox, although I don't need to be using that one. I could turn that one off. Solid tools I don't need, and I've got my views on, which is this here. So they're the main ones I need to be able to know, my views and all my main toolboxes. So I'm going to close that up. So if you want to make yours look the same, you can do that. Towards the bottom of my tools here, there's a few. There's this one here that says orbit. There's one with a pan, and there's some zooming ones. Now they're going to be really useful tools. But the most important thing for you is if you have got a wireless mouse, that you should use it, because the scroll button on your mouse does most of these jobs. Let me just draw something very quickly. Don't worry about how I'm drawing it for now, okay? But it'll make more sense about what we're looking at. So if I'm going to use my hand tool allows me to move whatever's on the screen around. My orbit tool allows me to basically change and move around. So I'm holding my left mouse button down as I'm doing this. And my zoom is fairly self-explanatory. I can zoom in and zoom out. But basically, if you've got a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can use your scroll wheel to go in and out, to zoom in and out. If I hold my scroll button down, that does the same as my orbiting. And if I hold down the shift on the keyboard and use my middle mouse scroll button, I get my pan effect. Okay, so back to where we were with these axis lines. So you can see I've got my X and my Y and my Z. Okay, before I go any further, we'll do File and we'll save it. So File, Save As. You need to find somewhere for it to go. I'm going to put mine just straight into my D drive. I'm just going to call this one Test. Okay, it's not going to do anything more than that, but now it comes up, it says test at the top. I know that I'm actually saving my work. Now I drew this very quickly. I'm going to get rid of it and then go over some drawing techniques for you. So again, I'm going to use the select tool. I'm going to highlight over it, and so it all goes blue, and I'm going to press delete. So I'm back to my canvas being completely empty. Now I want you to make note, there's something down here. I've got my measurements switched on, so I've got a box down here. So if I come back to where I was again, draw a rectangle again. This time you can see that because the lines are showing me where my green, red and blue lines are, I can draw from them. If yours doesn't show that, basically under your, I think it's preferences, let's have a little look, see if I can find it. Preferences, over here, you can turn on, under drawing, this one that says display the crosshairs, and sometimes that's quite useful. If you don't have that, you don't get to see those things, so tick that on yours so you can see them. Okay, I'm going to start drawing by dragging out. I'm holding my left mouse button down and I let go, but you can see in the bottom left over here is some dimensions, and they're really weird dimensions. They got loads of numbers after the decimal places. It's not very accurate. Say I wanted to make a cube that was 200 by 200. The easiest thing to do is to type in 200, 200. You can see in the bottom left it says 200, 200. If I press my enter button now, it makes that thing 200 by 200. That's the first tool, so this rectangle tool. Now, what I did next was I used what's called the push and pull tool. You're going to use this loads. Okay, you're going to click on that, and it allows you to select a face. Can you see that goes a different color? As soon as I click now and start dragging, I can go upwards or downwards. Okay, I'll drag upwards, but again in that distance thing down here, it's still switched on to this technique. So unless I basically press enter or press escape, I stay on the tool I'm on. So I'm going to make that, I'm going to make it 100. So that should now be a complete square because I used 100 on the other dimensions. Okay, so I can still pan around, I can look at it, I can do things with it. But what I could do if I wanted to was I could actually do other shapes within there. So if I could use my rectangle tool again, I could just randomly draw on one of these faces and make another rectangle. And I can do exactly the same thing. I can use my push and pull tool and I could pull something out from there. It looks like a drawer coming out of a filing cabinet. In fact, if I wanted to make that into a filing cabinet, I could draw on top again, draw another rectangle up here somewhere, and I could use my push and pull tool, and this time maybe I'll go downwards. Now I can't see how far down I've gone. I can look at my dimension. I've got distance over there, so if I wanted to go down 60, I could press 60 and press enter. And if I want to pan round now and have a little look, I can see what that looks like. Okay, so basic use of push and pull and rectangles. I'm going to get rid of that again. So there's lots of ways of getting rid of things, but the easiest way is to get a box around what you don't want, press delete.